Alrighty, tonight's theme is Lenting with an Irish Flair. As Paul told you, my name is Maria Rodgers O'Rourke, so that might give you a little hint as to why Ireland is on my mind. I think it's also a nice opportunity for us to revisit what we're doing here during this season of Lent. We're about halfway through, right? We're in the third week, and maybe we need a little booster to remember why we're doing what we're doing. And so I want to share with you some images from a couple of visits to Ireland that I have been blessed to make, and talk about that in the context of Lent. And then there's a lovely video of a song based on the prayer of St. Patrick, from the breastplate of St. Patrick. So we'll spend some time with that, and then, as I mentioned earlier, another image, and that image will be the basis for our small group conversation too. Okay, so Paul has hit it. So William Butler Yeats has said, being Irish, he had an abiding sense of tragedy, which sustained him through temporary bouts of joy. This is the fate of the Irish. And so hopefully I'm going to share with you some of the joy of being Irish, and also some of that deep grace and deep presence that is available to us on that beautiful green soil. So what I want to talk to you about is a Celtic concept that I think you probably have heard of, and it's called thin places. There's a Celtic saying that heaven and earth are only 3 feet apart, but in the thin places, that distance is even smaller. A thin place is where the veil that separates heaven and earth is lifted, and one is able to receive a glimpse of the glory of God. And on my trips to Ireland, I've had the opportunity to visit a few thin places, and I wanted to take you to one of them tonight. And this one is in the Burren National Park in County Clare, Ireland. This is near the west coast of Ireland. The Burren is this vast, at times desolate, rugged expanse on the continent of, on the island of Ireland. And I had an opportunity to visit a site there. My daughter Katie was with me on my first visit, and then I returned there last fall as well. So this is the entrance gate to the journey that we took. And we followed a path called Slieve Carron. It's a 2.5 kilometer looped walk through open limestone pavement that passes through a small area of mature oak, ash, and hazel woodland. This site includes a stone oratory, a cave, and a holy well associated with St. Colman MacDowell, who reputedly set up a hermitage there in the 7th century. Here's a glimpse of what the walk looks like. Now, there's a path that runs alongside these rocks, a somewhat rugged path, but yes, pilgrims have traveled before and carved out this path for us, but on either side, it's this rugged limestone that's been worn away by the weather, and these small bits of grass and flowers push up between the limestone, creating those bits of green that you see across. And then in the background, I don't know how well you can see it, there's a wall. It's so beautifully constructed in the Irish tradition, where they don't use any kind of mortar to hold the stones together. It's all in how the stone is cut and laid and balanced against each other. And these walls stay up for generations. So this is our walk through the Burren National Park. Here's another site of the rugged terrain that we passed through. And so the walk into Coleman's Well and his area is about a mile, give or take. And as we get closer to Coleman's Well, it gets a little bit easier. There's more green, there's more grass. The ground is softer. And so you can see we move into, in the distance there, it's almost like a little oasis where the well is held inside and the oratory. And our next slide is a photograph of how Coleman's oratory looks now. Now, what St. Coleman did was, he was in retirement, and his desire for his retirement days was to live in solitude, in the beauty of nature, and to follow a fairly rigid spiritual practice, all in the name of having a greater and deeper experience of God in the beauty of nature. So finding and making that connection. And so one of the things he did was build this oratory. As you see, part of it still stands. The first time that I visited, we hiked up and around behind the oratory and discovered this cross there. Now, I know that this cross cannot date back to the 7th century, but at some point, some pilgrims did erect that cross there at the oratory to mark this place for St. Coleman. Coleman had, legend has it that Coleman had a rooster, a mouse, and a fly at his service to help him in his spiritual practice. So Coleman didn't want to sleep very long. He didn't want to sleep longer than maybe 5 or 6 hours at a time. And so the rooster would crow to wake him up if he was sleeping in a little too long. The mouse would come along and tickle his arm and keep him moving across the Holy Scripture and the other spiritual reading that he was doing. And if by chance Coleman dozed off at the page, the fly would land holding his spot. That was Coleman's experience of being in nature and how his spiritual life was supported that way. So the oratory was where he prayed, but then he he slept in a cave that's about 30 feet up and behind the oratory. And water actually comes in and out of this cave. And so he would sleep during times when the tide was out, right? And then he'd come back in at that time. So very rugged existence for St. Coleman, very earthy, very down to it. So I hope you've got the picture. There's the oratory, the cave is up and over to the right, and then down the hill a little ways to your left is his well. And that's me in the baseball cap at the well last fall. And so this marvelous, clear, fresh spring water bubbles up and out of this spring and flows down, creating the oasis that I shared with you. This well also is known for its healing properties, particularly problems with the eye, but there have been stories of miraculous healings of people that have been blessed by the water and have been a part of that. And I think you can see by my posture there at the well, I was carrying 2 very special intentions with me this day and scooped up some of that water. And some of that water is with us tonight. And we'll have an opportunity to share that together as part of our closing prayer. So, all the way from the Burren, County Clare, Ireland for you, St. Coleman's Well. The water is here. A couple more images from that place as well. That's the view on the left is from the well itself, looking up at the oratory. And then the view on your right is like over my right shoulder from the last image, where you can see the water coming down. What a gift to be in that space. And on our first trip to Ireland, on the tour that we were on, we were in a very small group, and I was with my husband Steve and our 2 daughters, Abigail and Katie, and we were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. And there were just about 12 people in the tour group, so we had a lot of flexibility about where we were going. And the tour guide said to us, I have this very special place I want to show you in the Burren. And she took us to Coleman's Well. And I thought, what a blessed, wonderful way to start our tour. And the tour was not affiliated with any, Catholic organization or anything like that, that she felt moved to take us to such a special and beautiful place. It was just really remarkable. And I think that Coleman's Well is an example of a thin place. And so, thin places, the Celts call this space both seen and unseen, where the door between the world and the next is cracked open for a moment, and the light is not all on the other side. A God-shaped space and holy. I was a little familiar with the well when I first saw it on this first tour, and I was trying to remember, how do I know this space? How do I know this space? And then it dawned on me that I'd seen it in a video presentation by John O'Donoghue, the poet and philosopher who would lead walking tours through Ireland. And he would take people to Coleman's Well. And I'd seen that video within a few years of going on this trip, and I thought, how do I know this place? And then it dawned on me that it was John O'Donoghue. And so I have included this quote from John, from his book, Eternal Echoes. These sanctuaries of creation help us to anchor our longing in the ancient longing of nature. To anchor our longing in the ancient longing of nature. And I think that's what St. Coleman was doing by creating this space for that time in his life, to really be a part of nature and to enter into his spiritual practice and to make that deep, deep connection of God, with God. And so what I'd like to speak with you about for a few minutes is what I've called the Burren of Lent. And hopefully you saw some of the parallels there on the journey into the oasis, that the rough and craggy road, the dry ground, the parched throats, leading us into an oasis of green and of glory and of beauty that we know through Easter. And so I'd like to just offer you a couple of reflections on what we do at this time of year during the Lenten season, again, to help fortify us at the midway point. So I like to think that Lent helps us create thin places within ourselves. As we know, the three practices during Lent, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, when we take the time to pray, and I love this quote from the Talmud, it says, prayer is the service of the heart. And I'd like to think about that for just a moment, that when we serve, when we are of service to another, it takes us outside ourselves, doesn't it? It moves us out of our concerns and our self-centeredness and calls us to focus on the other. And when we take that time to pray, it takes us out of that internal self-centeredness and closed space and turns us out to God, turns us out to new possibilities, to God's grace. And so by being intentional about our prayer, we are training our hearts in a practice of service. And what a wonderful gift during this Lenten practice that posture of service of the heart can be for us during these days. The second in creating this thin place within us is fasting. And to borrow a word from our Jesuit brothers, the famous term detachment. Lent through fasting helps us get better at detachment. And what do we mean by that? Well, there's an image there of the hands holding the small bird. And Anthony de Mello, the Jesuit poet and theologian, he spoke of that everything in life is gift. And we are called to hold that gift as we would a bird in our hands. To hold it with open hands and to support it enough so that it remains strong, but not to clutch at it and cling to it in a way that we might suffocate and hurt the bird. And so through the practice of fasting, of denying ourselves, of doing without for a while, we learn the joy that comes with holding the gift loosely as we would like a small bird. That gift of detachment, that we would look at the gift tend to it, and then through prayer, determine if that gift leads us into deeper relationship with God, or does it lead us away? And that's what discernment is about, is from that place of open-handed detachment to think about what's in our highest good that God has willed for us as we've been created to live in this world. And then the third dimension of Lent, our Lenten practice, is almsgiving. And I love this phrase, God owns it all. And there's a story behind this that I think Paul will get a kick out of, especially because Paul and I have known each other for a few years, and we worked on some special projects from time to time when I was with the Archdiocese of St. Louis, and I was involved with the stewardship program. And if you're familiar with the stewardship program from your local parish, it's all about time, talent, and treasure. And seeing, again, everything that we have or possess in our lives as gift, and then giving a portion of that back to God through our time and our talents and our treasures. Well, part of my job was to go out to parishes and talk about this program and to try to help nurture some enthusiasm and desire to implement it in their own parishes. And I'll tell you, some meetings went better than others. And I remember one evening I was leaving a parish council meeting. I'd made my presentation, and I think I got a similar response to, changing chairs tonight. I asked for any questions. Nope, we're good. Okay. So I walked out to my car, and I had left my radio on the Christian music station that played music during the day, but it had teachers at night. And with God as my witness, I started my car, the radio came on, and the teacher on the radio said, "When you want to talk to your people about stewardship, remember 4 words. God owns it all. God owns it all." So we are caretakers of parts of creation. We are stewards of creation, but we don't own it. It's not ours. It's ours to take care of and to serve in that way. And so that's been a wonderful leveling phrase for me from time to time in my life. God owns it all. God owns it all. And so that's, to me, what part of the practice of almsgiving is all about, is that, this isn't all just for me, just so I can hoard it and hold it here, but it's about how can I return? How can I make a return for how I have been so blessed? So Lent help us to create these thin places within us. We choose prayer to take that time. We fast to give it up, and we give alms to give it away. And to me, that resonates so much with my whole experience in Ireland, that just the beauty and the glory of nature in that setting, and to think about St. Coleman in that space. And it's not about me. It's about all of this and how it's feeding me so that I can return to the world and be of service, to reach out to others. So here's the first of some of the visual images I want to share with you. This is a beautiful video that was produced by an order of Irish priests, surprise, surprise, the Brothers of St. Patrick. They call themselves the Patrician Fathers, and they've taken a song that you may have heard before called The Deer's Cry. It's a beautiful setting of the prayer of St. Patrick's breastplate, and they've added some images to it. And so I invite you to just listen to the song and watch these images, and just let its message and the images float over you. kicked you out.
I kicked myself out.
It happens to me more than I care to admit.
Get there.
There we go. We're at slide 21.
Thanks everybody for your patience. Let's see, slideshow.
Just, you can glide
Just
down there on your
scroll.
left.
There we go.
Scroll down the left column.
Okay, you're gonna get motion sickness. Close your eyes.
There we go.
Okay. So, watching that video is an entree to what I'd like us to try tonight as part of our experience, Visio Divine. While Lectio Divine is a method of praying with scripture, Visio Divine, Latin for divine seeing, is a method for praying with images or other media. And I love this. With our culture becoming more and more visually oriented, an intentional way of praying with images is needed now more than ever. Visio Divina invites us to see at a more contemplative place. So here's what I would like to do is, in a moment we'll put an image up on the screen, and I would like us to sit in silence and look at the screen, look at the image for several minutes. And I ask you to attend to the feelings that the image evokes for you. The feelings that it evokes, what is it reminding you of? Is it connecting you to other things? And then as you look at it longer, what are some of the details that emerge for you that you didn't see at the beginning, okay? So just to tell you how it's gonna go, we're gonna look at the image and we're gonna turn off the lights in the room so that the detail of the image is clearer for you. So we'll sit in dark for a few moments looking at that. And then I'll invite you to get into groups of 2 or 3, and there'll be some questions up on the screen related to the image and your experience of it. And again, just trusting that divine seeing, you know, how is God perhaps speaking to you through the image? How is your imagination being stirred in a holy way? And then we'll talk, as I say, in the small groups about that. We'll turn the lights back on for that part of the conversation. And I want to also say that we will share in a spirit of there's no wrong way to see the image. So I hope that you feel open and comfortable, and that you'll make each other feel comfortable in saying, oh, you know, well, I saw that. Well, I saw this. Well, it looks like this to me. Because again, it's how the image is inviting you into some contemplation. Okay, so we'll get you set for some quiet, dark time with the image, and then I'll call time after that.
Do you mind getting the lights, Maria? Just hit those 3.
turn some lights back on, and then as I say, there'll be a couple of questions that will come up on the screen, and I invite you to gather with 2 or 3 other folks in the room for some conversation around those questions. And I'll also add, don't feel like you have to finish every question, you know. And we got off to a little late start tonight, so if you'd like, just kind of talk about the question you're most interested in discussing, you know, just leave you to choose that. So if you'd like to find someone you're sitting by and have some conversation.